This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing. Kurt, what should be our secret word for today?
How about clout?
Okay, yes, people should listen for that one.
If I take my time.
Welcome, everyone. Today's guest is Kurt Clopton. I've been very, very excited to have you on the show. Kurt lives in Wisconsin. He wrote a couple of books. He's made some art in various forms, drives his kids around, and occasionally fixes things that have broken. Kurt is the author of SuperGuy and SuperGuy 2, Electric Boogaloo, and they are very funny books, so I've been excited to have him on, but also I've been excited to have you on because of your idea about these costumes we are wearing. So tell everybody about your costume.
Well, I am wearing almost a collage of costumes, really. I had to clean out some rooms because of a son going off to college. And in the top drawer of one of the dressers, I found a collection of all the old Halloween costumes he had. And none of them obviously fit me. So I had to do some work and combine them. And so I have basically Spider-Man, the original color on one leg, and Spider-Man, the black color on the other leg. And then I have Captain America on one half of my upper body and Iron Man on the other half. And with the mask, I went for Master Chief from Halo. And really, it works pretty well. It's a bit tight. I can't feel anything below my waist.
Yeah.
I don't know if this goes on too long, if I'll have to go to the bathroom, but at least right now I can't tell if I may have already gone to the bathroom.
Yeah, yep.
So that's where I'm at. But
I
I do have some burning sensation in my ear because the Master Chief mask is really tight.
Yes. I thought this was such a great idea, and I was very excited. And I did not make the necessary alterations either. So I found my son's old costumes as well. Our sons are the same age, so the same kind of era. And this, I think, also says something about our parenting that our guys are into the same stuff. So I've got Spider-Man and Wolverine 2. I've got a Nazgul. There was a Vader year, so I've got half a Vader mask, and then he wore a Mandalorian costume to Comic-Con, and so that one almost fits because it's from when he was older. But the Wolverine was clearly from when he was 4, and that is really uncomfortable right now. Like that is, yeah. So we'll just see how this goes. It's good for my abs right now because I'm having to suck in because it's like holding me in. But at some point, this girdle of Wolverine is going to. It may burst through, and we'll have like a whole a very different kind of show.
I'll just see you fall over out of the
Yes,
frame, and that'll be it.
yes.
Okay.
Pass the fainting couch here in the study. Um, so you are a fan of bad movies. So what has been a bad movie? What got you into bad movies, and what have you been catching up on lately?
Well, I would listen. There are a couple of podcasts. Well, okay, we could go back to the original Mystery Science Theater 3000, which, of course, was watching bad movies and talking at the screen. But there's also a couple podcasts that do it as well. But How Did This Get Made is one of them. And I'll listen to that sometimes, and I'll be, and they'll do movies you've never heard of course. Velocipaster, maybe you've heard of that. But they'll do ones that are mainstream, like Superman 4 or something like that, that you don't necessarily think a lot about or whatever, but they really bring up interesting ideas about why did they go ahead and do this. So just a friend of mine and we started watching them, and then started with Steven Seagal, most importantly, more recent Steven Seagal, where he is barely in the movie. He's like in three scenes, and the whole thing's disjointed because they have all these other actors doing the real movie, and then he's in, and it doesn't make any sense. It's really good stuff, and we even pulled in a third friend, so now we torture him too. But it's a variety of things. It's not always a bad movie. We've tried to make some adjustments, like, okay, this time let's watch what's considered a classic, and we'll decide, well, is this really a classic? And, some of them turn out to be good, some of them not so much.
Well, and once you get in the habit of the banter, then you're watching a classic and you find yourself still making fun of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if it's a classic, you definitely notice things that, oh, well, they never do that nowadays.
Yeah.
I always remember Casablanca. There's a scene where they're watching supposedly one of those planes taking off that, symbolize this escape for all these people, but it's so obviously a bad model that's barely moving, and the people are supposed to be watching it, and it's moving along. It's like, that thing's not going to stay in the air if it doesn't get going faster.
I'm hesitant to recommend another podcast on this podcast that is much better, but if folks like bad movies, the Flophouse is a hilarious bad movie podcast, and I had Elliot Kalin, one of the hosts, on this show one time. It's very, very funny. They don't watch the show live during the recording. Each of the guys watches the show, sometimes together, sometimes separately, and then they just get together and dissect it. And they're just, a couple of them are writers for the Daily Show, or former writers for the Daily Show. They're very, very funny. And and so it's that's a good one. You would enjoy the Flophouse, and they do, like the bad Nick Cage movies are some favorites.
Yes. Which some might, have a hard time finding the good ones.
yes, but he's got some where you're like, he clearly just needed money and was willing to do this movie that makes no sense for him to be in. The closest I ever got to doing that was Crystal and she convinced me. She was shocked that I had not seen any of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Oh.
And so we did a binge of all of them straight through, and I live tweeted them. And
oh my gosh.
At the end, I did a roll up, and just reading it is, and now they're defying the laws of physics again. Like, this car is flying and then manages to perfectly land on its four wheels and continue down the road. Like, it is, that's a fun one to break down, where you think, oh, these were monstrous hits, these made tons of money. They're real garbage.
and in the beginning they were normal people, and now they punch holes in concrete walls.
Yes
They're superheroes.
Become absolute super, and that's kind of the fun of it, is they've left physics and reality behind, and so they are fun to watch in sequence, to just go, and they just gave up on having this be in any way realistic, and it became a cartoon, and it's a fun cartoon, but when you're watching them in sequence, you're like, wow, they figured out what worked, and they leaned into it. So,
and the How Did This Get Made podcast does those. When a new one comes out, they will watch it in the theater, and then they'll come right in and do the podcast for it, because they love to do those.
They're great to. Why is this person punching this person? It's never been made clear. They were a good guy at one point, and now they're a bad guy, and that's just okay. We're like, oh yeah, then they need some punching.
And everyone who was a bad guy is now a good guy.
That's right. Once you've been on the show long enough, you are now, part of the universe, and you must become a hero.
And if you died, that doesn't mean anything.
They come back. Well, and I think it does, for us as comic book fans, it feels very comic booky in that way. Like,
oh yeah.
This character was introduced as a villain. Don't worry, they'll become a hero. Then they'll become part of the super group. Then they'll die. Then they'll come back. That's fine. That's, that's normal Marvel kind of trajectory,
or soap opera. Soap opera, those people can come back, doesn't matter if they die.
So this is a show about procrastination. What has been keeping you from your writing this lately?
It's kind of funny, because I do play a little bit of, I don't write consistently. I'm horrible about that. I'm sure the writers that write every day and live by that hate me, but I won't write. I don't write at all unless I have something to write. So if I'm writing a book, I'll write regularly. If I don't, I haven't written in 6 months
Yeah.
right now. But if I have anything that's going on right now, it's probably the playing a guitar a little bit more often. I play with a group. We could call it a band. We don't play out or anything. We just get together and we have set lists of songs. We learn new songs and we just play through that stuff. And that's our enjoyment. We don't currently have anyone who wants to become a rock star, but that's the dynamics of being in a group like this is very weird because you'll have people who will be in it and they'll be okay with just getting together and playing and stuff until they're not, where
Yeah.
they want to go out and play because they want to be a rock star, and they want that high. And I don't really care about that. I'm perfectly happy. Let's take this song and let's try to make it as perfect as we can with everyone playing all the parts that are supposed to be played, etc. And or part of it is if there's 6 instruments in the song, there's only 4 of us, there's only so much we can do. So
Yeah.
we don't
what
have
kind of
any
stuff do you what kind of music do you find yourself coming back to?
we do quite a variety, and it becomes interesting when you get new people in because we have people who they'll bring a new song or whatever. And so we could do older stuff. We do a couple Beatles songs. We do 80s stuff with the Cars, or we've toiled a little bit with Duran Duran, but whenever you get into synthesizers, we've just got somebody in who can do that. So we're moving in that direction, but we haven't quite started wholesale yet. Tears for Fears a little bit. And then we go up through Foo Fighters and Green Day and Better Than Ezra, more recent bands and that sort of thing. Not anything super recent, although Foo Fighters obviously still put out stuff, as does Tears for Fears for that matter.
Right. And Better Than Ezra is an underrated band. They're really, really
Yeah.
some great songs.
So, and then and just now this last time we threw out some real random stuff like Beach Boys we're putting in, Huey Lewis and the News. We're going to throw one of those in, and I can't remember what the third one was, but also just another first one that we've just gotten out of nowhere. So it's kind of fun because I obviously learn something if I've never I'm familiar with those songs that we're going to do, but I've not sat down, learned them. And I actually sing most of the time because no one else wants to. But so then I have to learn to do that as well. And you get into a Beach Boys song, you have to decide, well, am I going to try the falsetto or not?
Yes. Well, and do you find yourself going, it is fine for us to be doing our own kind of variation on this and making it our own, or are you trying to make it sound like the original, or how do you kind of strike that balance?
It's kind of an ability thing. It really is. I mean, that none of us, I don't think any of us would say we were fantastic musicians or singers. Like, I'm not going to be throwing out, Kiss by Prince. That's just not going to happen. But we can get by if we stay in ranges and stuff. But, when it gets to real complicated guitar solos, that might be a little above our pay grade. Some we pull off, some we just either like recently we had one, and it's hard to follow because it has a lot of distortion and wah on it, which makes it really hard to tell just what he's playing. And it's not a well-known band, so you can't just go out on the internet and find it like you can with a lot of stuff. So I ended up just making up a solo that in the same key roughly fits it, and it's good enough. And since it's not a well-known band, no one will know it's not the right thing.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and I think that simplifying is legitimate. Like, hey, this is our version, and you know.
And you kind of, once you start doing this and realizing that, and then you see other people playing out, and you go, oh well, I just saw some guys playing an acoustic version of a Beatles song, Get Back, and they, I saw that, well, they're not playing this particular, the riffs on this part and the solo on this part, so they're just leaving all that out, and they sound fine. So
Right.
it's like, obviously you can do it. So it
Yeah.
just depends on what you want to throw into it.
Yeah. And so, is it just kind of, jam practice, or, is there any kind of performance, that comes of it for friends and family?
It's just a jam practice. I don't know if anyone would want to come and listen and watch. I mean, they'd be, we don't care. They certainly can. We've had, one or two people sitting around listening when we've done it before, but it's never been a performance thing. But
Yeah.
maybe someday we'll open it up and say, hey, sure, if you want to come out, and there's always talk about playing in someone's backyard or
Right.
this
Yeah.
or that. But right now we practice in a basement, and it doesn't really work well for that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it might, you never know, it might be best left in the basement.
Right. Yes. 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 The variation on the garage band, the basement band.
Yes.
Uh, So, what has been grabbing your attention in terms of news? What's been going on in the world that's been taking your attention away this last week?
Well, especially in the last week or so, I've been doing a lot of watching of soccer because the Women's World Cup has happened and is ongoing. In fact, what, 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, my time or so ish, is the final, or
Who's
maybe
in the
it's five
final?
o'clock in the morning.
Is it Australia? Did they get in?
No, they played early this morning in the third place match. They lost to Sweden
Okay.
2-0. It's England and Spain in the final early in the morning tomorrow morning. If you
And do you
want
have a
to,
preference?
probably England, just because I lived there for a while, and a little more familiar with that team than Spain. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be about the only real reason.
And will you watch it live? Will you, or will you
Oh
wait
gosh,
till
no.
tomorrow? Yeah.
I will just get up and watch it on my YouTube TV once I get up and get around to it. Otherwise, the Premier League started, which is the English top flight league, and I think I said I lived in England for a year in college, and I lived in Nottingham, and I went to one game there. They at the time had a team in that top league. They since then went down, and it's been 24 years or so till last season when they actually got promoted again to be in the top league. So I've been watching them because I can actually see them now play.
Yeah.
And I, at the same time, I watch Liverpool, who was the team I adopted since I could never
Yeah.
watch Nottingham. I had to pick another team to watch because, they don't show the level below. So
Yeah. So you've got, so you've got Liverpool to, to boost. Well, now you've got two if they're both in, you could end up with conflicted loyalties.
yeah, but it's really two different worlds. I mean,
Yeah.
even though they're in the same league, it's like there's a top six teams that realistically could win the league, and then there's the bottom who just, if you can get to the point where you're comfortable staying in the top flight, then you're good.
Yeah.
But if you get down into that zone where you can drop down every year and always fighting to stay alive, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, if we did that in some way over here, it makes the whole league more interesting instead of, your football team being 1-15 or 1-16, and that's just all there is to it.
Yeah. And
but
yet,
if they have
they
to
will
fight
still.
to stay alive, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is I'm thinking about some of the I'm a big NBA fan, and I'm thinking about what would happen if some of these teams that are perennially terrible were like, you may cease to exist. You're gonna now go down to the G League because you're so bad, sorry, Then
Yeah.
they've devised all these systems to try and make sure no team stays awful forever, so they get the best draft picks and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that it is interesting when they're fighting for their lives in a different way rather than they're go these some of these guys are going I if we get knocked out earlier, I get to go on vacation sooner
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
suck,
Well, and then it's of course it's all about money too. They don't have a cap in soccer, so
Oh,
those top six teams
the
can
pay
spend
is
as much as they want.
wild.
And
Yes.
I mean, they have players sitting on the bench who are paid so, more than like half of these lower tier half the team in another,
Yeah. Did you hear
few
about this
spots
guy? I'm
below
trying to
them.
remember the guy's name who just got picked up by the Saudi team for, I believe it was $300 million to buy him out plus his salary.
Oh
He's the
yeah.
highest paid athlete.
Name probably, well, it's probably Neymar from PSG.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
And so there were NBA players saying, maybe I like tweeting out, like, maybe I should take up soccer.
Maybe.
Guys who make $100 million going, this is nothing on this guy. He made 300 million to be purchased, to be bought out, plus his salary, I think is going to be like 700 million. I mean, the guy's going to make like $1 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's amazing how
crazy.
much, well, and it's amazing how much money they should just, the basketball players should convince the Saudis to create a basketball league. Just
Yeah.
do it that
Yeah.
way.
I mean, it is, and it's, these are sums of money I cannot comprehend, like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's the amount of money they throw around is ridiculous. And there's, I mean, you could go into the weeds on what teams are kind of, there's a, punchline that Chelsea bought yet another person for 120 million. Well, they do that every 2 seconds.
yeah.
It's just, they
Yep.
throw money around. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And somebody's doing the math and saying this works. Like, we will then be, this much more competitive and sell this many more jerseys and
Yeah.
tickets, and it makes us money. And I'm going, that individual is going to make you that much money. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like everyone will now buy his jersey,
Yeah.
the Saudi jersey, and they'll sell, you know, who knows how many of those.
Well, and how many, and box seat for, billionaires to sit in and do business. Like, there's so many other revenue
Oh
streams
yeah,
that really are, it becomes about something very much other than the sport, but
oh yeah.
yeah, that's that has been, yeah, I've got a friend who's a big soccer, I mean, plays weekly, and when World Cup happens, he watches live. And that means if it's, the game starts at 2 a.m. and he's a
He's
teacher
watching.
and he's still like, sorry, it's World Cup. And I'm like, that's great. He comes in, he's just so exhausted during World Cup, but he loves it,
Yeah.
Yeah, the time zones. I mean, even a late NBA game, and I'm like, "Ugh, I'm old. This is and I'm on the West Coast, which is nice for sports in the United States. Like,
Well,
our late games aren't that late.
yeah, it's interesting because I have no problem watching soccer games. I love the fact, if they go 45 plus minutes, no commercials.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to commercial. And then you come back for the second half, same thing. It's like so much better than basketball and football. I mean, when I watch a football game here, I never watch it live. I let it
No
go about
way.
45 minutes ahead, and then I start watching so I can go through the commercials.
Well,
It's
and that
just,
that was how when I was big on watching football. My brother's a huge football fan, and so he and I would talk like every week about football. But what made it fun for me was seeing how short I could make it with the TiVo. Like,
yeah.
can I fast forward between the actual plays and pause it to the, I mean, you can make a football game very, very short. Like,
Well, the basketball, well, and of course they did, baseball, they do the hurry up thing. I haven't watched baseball in years. And this is the thing, it's like I played baseball and basketball in high school and I played it in college. And I cannot watch baseball,
Oh
and
no.
I
Baseball's not
don't
a bad
think.
nap. I mean, if you want to take a nap, baseball's great for that. You see the first inning, you see the last inning, you slept through the middle, and you still basically understand what happened. Like,
Yeah, and I know they've even sped it up, but I'm still not interested. But the and basketball I like a little bit more, except I just can't do it because it's just too many commercials. I remember a while back I stopped. I'm flipping channels. I see, oh, here's a game. It's two good teams. Maybe I'll watch this. There's 30 seconds left. Or maybe it was like 2 minutes. And I thought, okay, let's see. I'll watch the end of this game. And LeBron was playing in one of the games in this game, and it was like, okay, they go down. Oh, there's a shot and a foul. Okay. Oh, we're going to timeout. All right.
yep.
And come back. And then it's like we shoot one free throw. And I don't know how they managed, but it seemed like somebody took another timeout between the free throws and we were at commercial again. And then they came back and they shot the free throw, went down, and another out of play, and they were going to a commercial again.
Yep. Yeah.
And I
Garbage time
I
is so slow.
I just like 2 minutes, and I look at it and I'm at like minute 40, and I've been sitting here for 15 minutes. I said, done. I'm done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'll say to the family. I mean, nobody else in my household is basketball fans, and they'll be like, "How much longer is this game going to be on?" And I'm like, "Well, there's only 30 seconds left." And inside, I'm going, "And that's 20 minutes."
Yes.
Like, yeah, because yeah, that's the last 30 seconds can really be slowed down. And sometimes pointlessly. You're like, this team is up by 6. There's
Oh yeah.
there's
Why are
10
you
seconds
calling a
left. Why
timeout?
call the time? Let it go,
Yeah.
And it's I know there's other pressures. The coach is going, somebody's going to think that I gave up the game. Yeah, give up the game. Like,
Give up the game.
You're down
You don't
by
have to
6.
give up the
The
game.
odds,
Game's actually over.
the odds that you're going to come back and yes, it is statistically possible, but do we have to watch that unlikely occurrence? Like, yeah.
Oh, you can edit this part out.
Sure. Yep.
My dog.
Yep, Evie. If I lock it, if I close the door, Evie will be sitting just outside in the hall. Very, very sad. And yeah, if I just open the door, she's been in here. You may have heard her snoring.
Yeah, I saw her, and I'm just thinking, wow, that's a nice quiet dog just sleeping there, and then mine's outside the door barking and barking, and it's like I know my wife must have left, so that means I'm the only one in the house. So then
yes, and the dog is lonely.
The dog needs me, and I'm not doing anything.
And now
he'll find interesting.
Yeah, and he'll be fine. He'll just be like, "What? Now I'm in the space with you. Everything's fine."
Yeah. Until he hears a noise, and then he'll want out of the space.
Exactly. I changed my mind.
You are no longer interesting enough. Let's go.
You have ceased to entertain me. Yeah. So next section, role playing. So the point of the show is to help readers get to know you. If you were a character in a role playing game, so not who would you play, but you yourself, if Kurt Clopton were in a role playing game, what would be your race and class?
Boy, I definitely would go the archery route. I'm always always have been a fan in any of these situations. I want to get some shots off before they get close.
Yeah.
Let's whittle them down a little bit if we can. Or if I don't ever have to get close to them, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and then back in the day, I know I would always go like a half elf, so I get some dexterity bonuses, and for that archery, and a wood elf to throw in there too to get those extra bonuses if they still exist. I know since I played, there's been some changes in the game, so I don't even know if all of these things exist anymore, or all the bonuses exist. But yeah, and I do end up doing like a lot of times there's a generic fighter, because I wanted to be able to use swords when things get close, when it comes time, but like a thief, or maybe some additional stuff there, or a ranger or something like that. But I never played like a magic user or anything too unusual, bard, nothing along those lines.
Yeah. So now you've been ambushed. 3 level 1 goblins jump out of the out of the woods. What do you do?
Well, hopefully I win my initiative, and if I do, I run away. No, I do my philosophy of trying to get a shot or two off, and if I can take them out at a distance, that's great. And if they get close, then hopefully I'm good enough with the sword to handle the rest of the situation.
Yes, my son and I, when we play like Halo, that kind of thing, we are a really, really good pair because I would rather hang back and like I'll literally run backwards and strafe and shoot, and he charges straight ahead. And that's his style. Like he'll even like leap over the characters and backstab. And I think in 4 you can backstab. And so he's jumping around backstabbing these characters as I'm running backwards. That's and it's teamwork. It works really well for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yes, I'm absolutely with you on that. Okay, well, we're going to go to our ad break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you what you've been daydreaming about.
All right.
Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new merch store at notapikepublishing.com. Of course, the site has books and more books, but we also have merch like t-shirts and hats and art prints. My apologies to YouTube viewers, but podcast listeners, imagine a far more handsome t-shirt model telling you I just got this new shirt, which shows a ghost saying, "Boo" is Latin for I shout. Seriously, look it up. You're welcome. We have hats with the logo from Unrelenting by Jesse Hennard and Marie Parks, the logo from our Stories Within anthology, and stickers that show Justice Sotomayor saying, "Respectfully, I dissent," with the respectfully crossed out because she chose to omit that in her response to the court's recent homophobic ruling. And there are art prints by Michaela Thorne, the artist and author of Tooth and Claw. Check out all the great merch at the store and use the code SHOWFAN for 10% off your entire order. All that's in the show notes. Also, we're always on the lookout for great guests and advertisers. So if you have a book or other product to sell and you're looking for a group of the most intelligent, witty, discerning readers, let us help you make that connection. Our ad rates are as low as $15, and guests will never pay to be on the show. Right, Doug? We agreed on that? We only have guests we want to talk to. Some jerk offers us $1 billion to be on the show. No way. Take a hike. Keep your billion, Elon. Stuff it in a pillow and hug it and cry because you're not cool enough to be on this show. Them's the breaks. You too, J.K. Rowling, get your hateful, racist, transphobic ass out of here. You can't buy an empathetic soul with that $1 billion, and it won't get you on this show either. The rest of you, make Writers Not Writing a part of your marketing plan today. Welcome back, everybody. So, Kurt, what's something you've been daydreaming about lately?
Well, I mean, this has a slight connection to writing because I have written some of it, a more of a mystery thriller book, although light on the mystery and thriller, just a type of thing. I've started writing it, but I'm using a character who lives on a boat, which gets me into looking at all these different types of boats. And so I just have gotten really interested in what they can do in a very small amount of space. And this led me into like, well, you can get motorhomes like this too. So let's look at what they do with motorhomes that are, just a little bigger than a van, but they have a bathroom and a queen bed and all this stuff in them. And I'm just amazed at all these things they get in there. And I found, the boat I was using as an example is like almost 60 feet. So it's a yacht.
Yeah.
It's nice, but we're talking like a master bedroom and a guest bedroom and then like a little bunk room as well, so you can sleep like 6 people comfortably, and and that's just the lower deck. And then the upper deck has really nice living room type of thing and a kitchen, and then that because of the way they build them has glass walls that move and spread out into a deck and then have more stuff out there. And that doesn't count the fact that you can go up above all that on what I would call a really nice little boat on top of my big boat. It's just like you got a whole nother place of refrigerator and seating, and you can drive the boat from up there too. It's just really these things are kind of nice. They're
Yeah,
really
well, and I
and
think about
expensive.
all of the yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think about all of the the memes about, oh, the FBI, what we're researching for our writing and being aware, and I'm going, your spouse has got to be far more concerned about this than anything else you could be researching. This is the really dangerous stuff cost
Yes.
wise. Like,
I
couldn't you
want to
just
get a
be
boat.
researching like forensic, blood spatter patterns or something? Boats, they're dangerously expensive.
Yes, yes. So, well, it's so expensive that it's not a danger of me getting one.
That's good. That's good. Yes. Yeah, you know what they say about the two greatest days in the boat owner's life: the day you get your boat and the day you sell your boat. Because
Yeah.
whoa, my
Well,
folks had that with their RV. Certainly, it was
yeah.
yay, we have an RV, and yay, we got rid of the RV. Like,
My folks had an RV for a while, and they really liked it, but I don't think they necessarily. I think they'd still probably have it if they could, but they also have gotten a little too old for that sort of thing. And the one they had some leak in it that caused mildew,
that's the thing. Yes.
and it was basically totaled. It could be fixed for a while, and then somebody decided, nah, not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. For my
So
folks, it was mildew, and it was, rental fees when they weren't using it. Where were they going to park this thing? And they were paying each month, and oh, we're using it less and less over time. And finally, it was less and less, and was going to require more and more maintenance. And finally, we need to get rid of this thing. And, they were saying to my brother and I, like, which of you is going to get this? And we're going, him. I don't want this burden,
not me.
So they found somebody who wanted it, and we were all very happy that.
Yeah, and that's in the my I'm doing a kind of Travis McGee-ish Magnum PI thing with this story. So, like Magnum PI lived in a guest house on somebody else's dime, my guy's living on a boat on somebody else's dime.
That's
So
good, because otherwise it's hard for us to identify with the yacht owner.
yeah, there's no way that I could fathom, because I'd have to go into all that stuff. Care
Yeah.
where to keep it when it's winter.
Yeah,
It's in Chicago, so
yeah.
it's Lake Michigan, so it can't sit there the whole time. So I've got
Yeah.
to have it. Yeah, so
Yeah, do folks in Chicago dry dock their boats for the winter?
I believe they do.
I mean,
Yes.
I would think otherwise. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there when it froze on the
Yeah.
shore, and pushed up on the sand so that the ice was 3 feet off the um, surface of Lake Michigan. Yeah, you would not want a boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So I think they all dry dock them, but this way I have the other person handles all those details.
yes,
And my
I've got a guy in my most recent novel who has a yacht, and it's kind of shorthand for douchebag. Like, this guy, like. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not making my guy a douchebag, but
Well,
he
but
does.
the
He's
the
perfectly aware of.
the owner's the one who's letting him live on it. That's
Yeah, well, and there's a whole backstory to that too, because it's actually a law firm that owns it. I mean, I could go into the weeds on this about how it relates to other books that I've read that have a hard time starting their stories. They have to just make them happen out of nowhere, and it doesn't make sense. If you just give this guy a job, it would make much more sense,
Yeah.
but they insist on that character not having a job. But since I've linked it into this law firm, it allows me to create this situation where the boat makes sense, and it has a lot of links to a lot of possible jobs. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
series can go
that's a
on
good
and on.
idea. And law firms really do, that kind of thing. I had a friend who was working for a firm in Portland, and they just bought, season tickets to everything
Yeah.
because they needed them for their, and so I will never sit that close to the Trailblazers again as the one game when, as the junior partner, he got this. Nobody else wanted the season tickets that night, and we got to have these amazing seats. So yeah, I mean that one you can buy, and then you're right. It then plays into, this is why he would be an investigator for them, and this is why they would be associated with this circumstance, this case. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, and the firm's yacht where they have their business meetings. It makes sense.
Yeah. And so they can take clients out on little tours
Right.
of Lake Michigan. Yeah,
Do these things. Again, it's a world that you and I don't live in.
no,
Like,
no, no,
yeah,
not
I
at
think I'll
all,
just have a
not at all.
yacht for business meetings. Sure, I don't need it most of the time.
But it's a thing of like how like Google and stuff is great because I can walk around on the pier that I've put the boat in and see all the sights and describe it because I know I don't even have to be there, but I've
Yeah.
seen it all.
Yeah,
It's really, really
between
cool.
maps and Street View, it's so great. I can go, oh, I'm getting the actual street name right. And then, oh, now they're on this corner. What does it look like there? And go down to Street View and actually look
Yeah,
around. It's a really handy tool for us, folks who cannot afford to visit every place that we write about.
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, but we strayed way too far into writing now.
oh, yeah, that's right. Now we're talking process. That's, yeah. What's one thing that's been going on in terms of your career that you want listeners to know about right now?
Oh boy. Um, Not, I guess, not a ton. Obviously, I finished something small, and I'm obviously still kind of researching boats and things like that. And I'm still toiling on finishing this current book, but otherwise, I um, haven't really done much in the way of career. I do a little side hustle of stained glass sometime, artwork, that
Oh,
sort of
that's
thing.
cool. So
So,
what got you in? How long have you been doing that? And what got you into that?
well, you know, for some unknown reason, I majored in art in undergrad and I eventually double majored in English. And so I'd always done some art and had that foolish notion that that was going to be my uh, source of
Your
income,
day job would be art.
which didn't really work out that way.
Yeah, no.
But I've had some. I got into the stained glass. I had some stuff in galleries here in nearby. There's this place called Door County, which, if this is the state of Wisconsin, it's this little thumb part that sticks up into, this would be Green Bay. Here's Green Bay, the city, Green Bay, Lake Michigan. Um,
Okay, you're
it
flipped. I was like, this is okay. Got
is that
it. Yes.
so okay, so Green Bay City,
There we go.
Lake
Now I
Michigan,
can see it. Yes.
yeah, Milwaukee, heading
And
down
I think the
toward
camera may flip it
Chicago.
around again for YouTube viewers. They'll be like, he was right the first time. Like,
Okay, this is
yes.
I'll start making
I
weird
mean, I'm
adjustments.
very familiar. I'm from Michigan, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do, yep, that's
Suddenly we'll be doing all the states with our hands.
yes,
Okay, this is New Hampshire.
yes.
Um
Idaho is just obscene. There's no way to do Idaho without flipping people off.
yes, yes. And you'll just blank things over the screen. I didn't know New Hampshire moved like that. Anyway, so that is a place where there's a lot of art galleries. It's a vacation spot, so people in Chicago and Milwaukee and Green Bay will go up there and they have vacation homes and all this sort of thing. So I have some work up there in a gallery, and then more locally, I'm going to put a couple things in around here. And then there's, just shows every now and then, like, this festival or that festival, which I can get a booth and maybe do
Yeah,
stuff. So I'm kind of ramping up to doing a little more of the stained glass just to have a supply ready for things like that.
that is very cool. And is your stuff, particularly abstract or representational, or what do what would somebody expect to find in a Clopton piece?
Well, it varies. I have done, you know, star or sun style things. I've done for other people, like I lived in the Northwoods here for a while, so there's a Northwoods theme, and so I had a friend who made furniture, and so that's we're talking pine trees. So I made some pine tree stained glass to go in the furniture. And I worked with a door company that's local here, so I
Oh,
made, yeah, a full size piece to go in a door, and that was based on their design, which was a just um just general shapes. It wasn't any particular theme or anything. And then I've done like a a cross for a door in for a church and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it varies on whether if somebody wants something done or whether I'm just doing it. And now I was doing some somebody needed some stars, so I did a few stars for them, and I have some left over, and I did a sunflower. All of these will be things that I may take to this festival type of thing,
Yeah.
and they're they're outside hanging on my trees right now because I'm just testing to see how they do in the weather.
Yeah.
And I got some spinner type things, so they blow in the wind. I want to see how they blow in the wind and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
this is
cool.
useful. But yeah, and then I have some miscellaneous shape pieces that I did all together that are just basically 1 foot by 2 inches, and so they just hang down, and they're just sun catchers essentially.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love pieces like that. I picked up a small one that was a piece of stained glass with designed like an eye in Greece, which is this, or I think I might have picked it up in Turkey, but it's this really common design you find in Greece and Turkey. The this eye, and it's on blue stained glass, and it's round and hangs. And so yeah, you get all this action in the wind,
yeah.
and the light that comes from that. But yeah, it's great for your, and they're they don't tend to be particularly expensive considering these are made by craftspeople.
No, yeah.
You're probably undercharging.
Well, yeah. That's the thing is I've looked on Etsy and see what are people charging for roughly same size and that sort of thing. And it's surprisingly more than I thought they
Yeah,
would.
I
But
mean, because yeah, that's a talented craftsperson. Not everybody. I could not do this, and so that's yeah. I hope you are getting compensated fairly for art, but so rarely that people are fairly compensated for
well,
their
yeah.
art.
I mean, the thing is that it does still. I mean, obviously, I know a person who records music and what they go through for selling stuff and how much they could get. It's just like just like the writing and how much work you put into it and how much can you sell it for and how much do you make, and it's not, the arts isn't easy.
No,
That's
and I think I was talking to a group about this, and it's because in other fields, people don't enjoy the work that they're doing, and therefore they are more willing to withhold their labor. Somebody will say, I will not do this for you unless I know I'm going to be compensated fairly. And we're idiots. And we say, no, I would make this for free. I love this act of creation. And so there's nobody saying, we're going on strike and we're not writing any books for the next 5 years,
yeah.
and so we don't have the ability to say, you do value this thing, you should compensate people, but yeah, we flood the market with the stuff we're willing to make because we love it, and undermine our own power in that way. But
And instead, all the people get mad at because you're not producing fast enough. And it's
right,
like, well,
right. Yes, well, and that's one of the things that's been a real learning for me in terms of the company is, we put these artificial pressures on ourselves where we're saying, I know I need to come out with a book next year, I need to have the next book in the series or people are going to be angry, and I have to remind authors, like, there are series where a book came out and then 17 years later the sequel came out and I still bought it. Like, it didn't
yeah.
dissuade me. I wasn't going, oh, Stephen King, you didn't come out with book 2 until many years later. And so there is not that. The pressure is one we put on ourselves to say, I want the next one to come out, but it doesn't really readers will follow you to the next book. So feel free to write SuperGuy 3. People will still buy it.
Well, and that's the thing is like I'm kind of I'm kind of not like that. Like I said, I don't write all the time anyway, and so I remember being at a party once, and it was in Door County actually, and there was a woman there who was an artist, and she was just saying, I just don't feel good or good about myself if I'm not producing. I've got to express and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm not like that at all.
Yeah. No, I saw this great.
I will do it if I have something to do, if I have a need to do it, if I have a deadline, if someone wants to buy something, I will make the piece for them.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting around just making anything because I feel like I need to express myself.
Yeah.
That's not the way
Yeah,
I
and
work.
it's I honor the folks who are that way, where they're going, I have to do this. I am a workaholic, but it manifests in different ways. Where I'm going, okay, I've got, if I'm, in fact, my own writing often is backseat, so that I'm going, okay, I got to do all this publishing company stuff, and my family has to say, you could just stop, but it's not that compulsion to get the next novel out every year or whatever. My next one's coming out, and it will have been 4 years, and I've heard it first from some folks. It
Oh,
took
really? Yeah.
4 years between books. Yeah, it takes a while. But I saw this great exchange this last week on the app formerly known as Twitter, where somebody was criticizing John Scalzi for not writing enough each day. And Scalzi's got tons of great books out, but he
I
writes,
remember that.
yeah, he
I
writes,
saw
a
that.
couple hours a day. And then Neil Gaiman jumped in his defense and said, I wrote Coraline at, I think he said, an hour a day. Like,
50, he said 50 words a night.
that's what it was. Yes, 50
Yeah.
words a night. You don't have to feel compelled to, I mean, that is certainly a model that works for, your Stephen Kings, who sit down and write 4,000 words a day. I am not ever going to be that person. Like,
No, no. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like it's great if you want to do that and that's how you go about it, but I have always felt that there's plenty of people who are writing 4,000 words a day and they're not worth reading, maybe.
right.
So it's not about how much you can write or how long you write in a day. It's whether you're getting something that is worth, putting out there.
Well, and we were talking about, you've got this novella, and sometimes a story tells us how long it's going to be. And, if you're saying I must write 4,000 words a day, and so I'm going to write 4,000 words of fluff, like that's not what the story may call for. I would much rather read somebody who said, I felt really compelled to write this short story, or even this piece of flash fiction. This is what needed to come out today. It's going to, have that feeling of kind of the integrity of the story, rather than I had to turn it into a 300-page book.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of garbage. So,
Well, and that's the thing is like, do I look at the novella and say, well, if I add 20,000 more words,
yeah,
but
I mean,
I'm trying to think, well, I'm gonna really have to shoehorn something in and super expand, and that's what I remember people talking about the whole trilogy thing with these big book publishers they get that first book that's really good, and then maybe there's the sequel, and that's all the person wants, but the publishers want 3 books because that sells 3 books, and so they end up taking the second book and pushing most of it into the third and then fluffing out the second book, and it's
I
why so many of these are not that good,
I don't, yeah,
especially
I don't
second
want,
book
to
on.
make enemies. I'm looking at the book on my shelf that I'm thinking of when I think of that, where the first one was so good and the second one was so terrible. And it was because somebody had said, stretch this thing out. The first one was a hit, that's kind of a surprise hit. You have to produce a sequel, and the sequel's just garbage, because, and you could
Yeah.
tell they were saying, stretch this thing into as many iterations as you can, because everyone's a check for you. And boy, it's, yeah, the integrity of the book was lost. Like
Yeah.
this, and it diminished the first one, making that second one, my feelings toward the first one are like, oh yeah, I really loved that first book, and boy, that second one was so awful that it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, it's interesting because you get into the people who you know conceive of their writing it as a trilogy, and that's all good, well and good, and I know it's super popular to do, and you almost feel like you're an outcast because I'm not writing this as a trilogy. But then you get that situation where my friend specifically who reads a lot of books, he hates this when he says that wasn't a whole story. That first book wasn't a whole story. That second book wasn't a whole story. I mean, it's just they're very disappointed book by book because they don't
Yeah.
write a whole story
Yep.
because they know they're going to that second book, and it can be very disappointing for the reader if you don't handle that whole thing well.
Yeah. Well, and I acknowledge I'm working on my first trilogy, and I very much did the Star Wars model. The first one stands alone. the second one's to be continued. The third one is he wraps it all up again. Like the second one will leave people going, and but
But
the
then
first
you're going to
one,
feel like you're going to have to get that third one out fast.
I absolutely already I've heard from people, you can't wait 4 years on the third, and I'm like, no, don't worry, it will not be 4 years for the third one.
You're putting that pressure on yourself.
I have created this artificial pressure, yes, but yeah, that one, because the second one ends to be continued, I'm really excited about the third. Like, yeah, so I hopefully I can still carry that energy into the third. I've already made really good progress on it because I'm excited about where the story's going. In fact, it was hard to stop working on the third and do all the editing that was necessary on the second to get it, got it back from the editors. And I was like, I really do need to do my edits rather than just write the third, which is so much fun,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's did you overlap? This is not maybe a little too much process, but did you overlap on the writing of SuperGuy 2 while you were still in the edits of SuperGuy, the first SuperGuy?
Not at all.
So they were
SuperGuy, the
totally
first one
distinct.
was done for a long time, and then I, whatever edits that I did before it was published, and then I started writing the next one.
SuperGuy, I have a bias, and I don't want to sway folks out, but I love two. Two is so funny, and so I just like want to encourage everybody, read the first one, read the second one. I mean, maybe you'll disagree. Maybe people out there will like SuperGuy the first one more, but I think two is hilarious. So it's all the other characters that get introduced are so great. So I
Yeah,
hope folks
and
will check that out.
part of it is that the way that writing went was like, SuperGuy, the first one was a long process with, going over it, sending it out, getting it rejected, rewrites or editing and all that. And then when I sit down for SuperGuy 2, I'm just sitting down and I'm writing SuperGuy 2. And it
Yeah.
was just all in one take, easy flow. And I think that's why it sits so well as a, one piece,
Yeah.
and it works so well.
Yeah. It's a really fun book. I hope folks will grab a copy because it's hilarious. Okay, so where can listeners find you when you are not or online?
Um, the best place is Instagram. I do have the thing formerly called Twitter and Facebook, but I'm really not on those much because they just seem like horrible places to be. And so I've kind of settled on Instagram, hoping it will not go that route either. But just search for Kurt Clopton. There's not a lot of Kurt Cloptons out there. It's
Yeah, and
really,
I'll link to it in the show notes.
it's just me.
Yeah.
You'll find me.
Excellent. And what is in your to be read pile? What's something that you're looking forward to checking out?
At the moment, I've been rereading this series of Lovejoy books. They're older. They did a series back in the 80s, early 90s, maybe with on A&E of it, and it has Ian McShane in it, which you might know from more stuff now because he's
Yeah.
really famous now. But American Gods and that sort of show.
Tombstone.
Yeah, and so I've been reading those, and it's been really interesting. I've just gotten into. I reread the beginning of the series, and now I'm got into books I never read. So it's a really interesting series to read in a couple different ways. In that it is, there are things in it where I go, why is that in there? You shouldn't have written that.
What's the genre?
Well, it's kind of mystery, but he's an antique dealer. So it's all about antiques and then fake antiques and stealing antiques and all that sort of thing. But it's for an author, for a writer, especially writing a series, they will find it very weird because the first book has the story, and at the end of the story, his car and his house, which is this beat up cottage, get destroyed in a fire. And he has a couple of main characters in that. The next book, the car is back, the cottage is back. It's like it never happened. It's just like he just did a reset and ignored
Wow.
any of that stuff and just kept on going. It's never talked about. It's
Never
never,
addressed.
no, never addressed. And
That's
I was
weird.
just like, yeah, I just was amazed by that. And it's just, and then there's other characters because you think these characters are going to come back, like the woman who's the rich married woman who he's kind of having an affair with, and she's kind of supporting him because he always doesn't have money, and yet every other book ends with him finding some antique treasure, and he's got to be rich now. But by
Right.
the next book, he's eating just frying up toast because he's got no food and no money, and it's never addressed. All this stuff just keeps resetting. There's another new rich woman who's helping him out, and it's just, I just find it so interesting that he did this, that
Yeah.
he just went along without worrying about any kind of
It's not really a
continuing.
series. It's like, here I've got this great character and all of these stand alone, but are all about him.
Yeah,
Like,
well, and then he will have some characters that are, other antiques dealers that he'll mention, and they'll be in various books, but who he decides to just write about, it's almost like you think he wrote them out of order, and
oh,
they were published out of order, except they really weren't. But then again, I found one part where it was, where he literally at the end of the book is going to get on a plane to go to California, yet the next book takes place in London. And then the book after that, California. It's like somehow they decided they were going to stick another book in there. Made no
that
sense
is,
to me.
that is interesting. Yeah. And it's not a, publishing company like error. Like, we put these out in the wrong
Yeah.
order. It's just, no,
It's
these
just,
jump around.
yeah. And then, probably the biggest thing and the big minus of it, and you'll find these obviously with older books, that they aren't very, you know, up to date on how people should be handled. Well,
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's
the
super uncomfortable moments where you're like,
yes,
oh,
yes.
this is
The
racism, or
main,
this is sexism. The sexism, I find that the
oh,
sexism even
yes.
is like worse. Like, I shouldn't. I'm not saying sexism is worse than racism, but in the older text, the sexism is so blatant.
Yeah.
You're just like, what? This was allowed? Like,
And this is the thing, is like, okay, he probably started writing these in the late 70s or so. And so early on, he clocks a woman, as he puts it. And I'm like, okay, did I read that right? Because he used some other word, but yeah, that's what he just did. And so I'm immediately like looking up, when was this published?
yeah,
And who decided that was okay? Plus, as a decision as a writer, you just had your main character, your lovable guy, hit somebody,
right,
and not in a good way, not like fighting the bad guys.
right,
You had him hit somebody.
right.
So why did you think how was that gonna make him look good? And like, I figured that, okay, this has got to disappear as the books go along. Literally, the one I'm reading right now, published 1992, he clocked somebody.
Yeah.
And he literally knocked her out, and then he just waited around for her to wake up again. And I was like, why would you put that in your book?
Yeah, but it's the whole how straight to the moon. Like, this was socially acceptable, and I think it's worth for cishet white guys to look at that and go, "Whoa, this is
Yeah.
this is what the society came from that you and I could just be unaware of." Like, growing up in the '90s, I don't know that I would have been.
Would we
It's
have read
not
right
that-
over that?
Yeah, we would have
And
just read right over it and gone, "Oh yeah, okay, people do that." Like, and now I'm like, that's appalling.
well, yeah, and I almost wonder, I mean, would we have read right over that in
I don't know.
1992? Because
92 seems late.
that seems really late. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly where I was.
Right.
You got to be kidding me. Plus the fact that it doesn't help the story. It doesn't move the story along in any way, and it also has the effect of this lovable main character you're making look like that.
A
I
total
mean,
dirtbag. Well, I wonder if from the author's perspective, it was characterization. Like, isn't he cool? Isn't he, and we're reading it going, no, that's
no,
not okay.
no, that's not
Not
cool.
okay at all. But I mean, I can only think that the author thought this helps people understand what a cool guy he is, because he does this kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
that mentality of like,
Or just viewed it as this isn't such a big deal that this
yeah,
happens, but it shouldn't happen, should it?
that's
I mean,
wild.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
And I expected, as I was reading through the series, that this stuff would just disappear.
yeah.
But who's your editor that doesn't say, well, can't we just take that out? Because
Right.
it's a tiny little bit. It means nothing in the context of the story, but for me, it means a ton
Right.
because it
Yeah.
makes
We're
this
now
guy,
going, oh, I'm never going to forget that he did that. Like, that's,
yeah.
yeah, you've scarred me. That character is now very different in my mind. Yeah. But
Yeah, so it's almost like I'm reading it in just a different way. Just I don't know, like I can't can't think of the right word, but in almost a sociological experiment of
yeah.
why is this guy writing this way, and why does he continue to write it this way? Is he being stubborn? Is anyone telling him not to? Is he just an idiot? I don't know.
Yeah, well, or I mean, is he a misogynist now, or was he just, that was the misogyny that was acceptable at that time? And but yeah, it does make me wonder. Like, does he still think that's okay? Like,
Well, I mean, yeah,
very hard
now he's dead, so it doesn't
I mean,
matter.
yeah,
But
that the problem
that
does
takes care of
solve
that.
itself in that way.
Yes, but it's also like, was he at all like that? I mean, was he
Right?
actually like that, or did he, for whatever reason, think that that's what this character had to be like,
Or
even
think that
though
that's what
it doesn't work?
or I mean, once it becomes so systemic, did he think readers would like it? Like, did he think I
Yeah.
better have, I think this is terrible behavior, but the readers love it when the guy smacks somebody and we're going, whoa, So maybe the culture shifted under his feet and he really
Well,
was writing for an audience that he thought would enjoy that.
and it's almost in some of the ways, it's almost like when the woman starts to become too argumentative or problematic, and so he clouts her, as
Yeah.
he puts it. And it's like,
Yeah.
no,
Mhm.
that's not good.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I don't think any of us are gonna like that character if he's doing
Yeah,
that. Can't
that's
you
it.
just say,
That character has now become unlikable to me. It's like,
yeah?
harming children, animals, like, no, that's it.
And it
I can't forgive
it's
that and move on,
it's this, yeah, it's this whole character that is written interestingly and stuff. And it's like, I remember, even on the book cover, Chicago Sun Times, who loves this lovable rogue of a character and stuff. Like, did you
Yeah.
read this part?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. I wonder if, like, as we blurb things, like, are we going, I said this was great 20 years ago. Can I
Yeah.
retract that? Because I'm embarrassed to have said, what a wonderful character, a lovable rogue.
Yeah, it's just this, yeah, I mean, it's just that whole cliche of, slapping the woman to get her to come to her senses or whatever. And it's like, no.
Does not age well.
And it's just, I just find it so interesting that that's in there. And I keep reading them to see how long does this persist? Does he
Yeah.
keep doing this stuff? I mean,
Well, and it sounds like in that series, because there's no necessary reflection between one book and the next, there's never going to be a time when the character has to say, boy, the way I used to treat people was, unacceptable. Like, there's not long-term character growth. You can go, and then I got on a plane to California and never showed up in California. Moving on. Teleported to London. The end.
And then I found all this gold, and somehow by the next book, it's all gone.
I mean, it could be that's what happening in between is the harassment lawsuits.
Yes. The unknown story.
That lawsuit was so boring. We decided not to tell that part of the story because he keeps slapping people. Then I did time for assault. That's not interesting. Moving on.
Yeah. It's just, I just find it really interesting, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's a little related to the Travis McGee books, the John D. McDonald Travis McGee books. I don't know if you've ever read them, but
No.
he's not, he started writing in kind of the same, probably 60s up through 86 or so. So there's a little bit of machoism in there, let's say. Not, there's no hitting of women like this guy did or anything like that, but there's the man's sexual exploits that will make the woman whole again sort of
Yeah.
concept that is just like, really?
Yeah.
But it's like that is you can almost like read it and say, okay, this was from the 60s, this
Right.
was a certain time, I can look past it. But the whole get into the 90s and still be clouting women.
Still doing it. Yeah. I mean, I teach a sci-fi lit class, and there's nothing where anybody's doing anything that, obvious, but there's this kind of pernicious, all the protagonists are male characters, and the women need to be protected. They need to be, separated from whatever danger, and then the men are, the ones charging in, and that is in and of itself, like, I think it's worth bringing into the classroom and talking about. This was just accepted, and it would have seemed wild to readers to have the couple both go charging off to confront the aliens together. Like they
Yeah.
would not have even imagined that. And so, it's I think it's worth doing that kind of sociological reading to say, what does this also reveal about that the author wasn't consciously trying to comment on? They were just going, oh, what, this is life, this is the way it is, we do this. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, and I remember that because I recently read like two or three classics just because, and I don't know exactly which one it was. The kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers one. I don't even remember. It escapes me the author and whatever, but it's one of the super well-known authors, and just in all of these, the writing of women was terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible. It's like, I don't understand how you can't just, I mean, there's a simple way to write a woman, and that's just write a normal person how you want them to write the character you want to write, and she's just happens to be a woman.
Right, a full human being with
Yes.
motives, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's really kind of simple if you don't overdo it. And then
If you know women, I mean, I think that's part of it, is the society was divided enough that these guys were like, I don't really know women's inner lives at all because I don't talk to them.
I don't talk to them. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly the deal. And one of the characters in this book goes from, okay, they're both like, agents in this group, and she's, one badass agent, and all this is up until suddenly, and I didn't really notice, they're in love.
Yeah.
And then what? She's kind of retired now because like she can't do her job anymore because and now he's just gonna go save the world.
Yeah.
I was just like, really? That's what we're
she
doing.
gave up on her entire career because she fell in love with him, and that was considered okay. Like, that's
And the author thought that would be her motivation. Like she still wouldn't want to actually, this big bad thing's still going on, I still need to save the world.
Right. But her motivation was apparently she was unaware that her motivation was to, find love and retire. Like,
yeah, go home and get the house in order.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that and so we'll talk about that in a classroom, and the kids are going, this is wild. And it is interesting because you and I, talk about, like, this was still happening in the 90s, and for us that's crazy, and the kids are like, of course it was, the 90s is ancient history.
Yeah.
For them, they're like, that was 10 years before I was born. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
That was the ancient times.
Weren't they still writing on cave walls in the early 90s?
Way before days.
So I wanted to ask you, what's your suggestion for a guest I should get on the show?
I haven't even read the book, but it's a new book that I just got in my hands on because I bought it. It's a friend of a friend. I think the friend I know, we were both in this friend's wedding. So this guy who is his best man, I think, wrote a book, and his name is Michael Weber. It's called The New Apprentice. It's a YA book. It's funny. I mean, I got it because I like to support the people I know who write books, because I know how tough it is to make
Yeah.
anything at doing it and get any kind of appreciation for doing it. But I don't really read YA, but I got it anyway, and I will eventually crack it open. But of course, as we all have these big
Oh yeah,
reading,
the TBR piles are
it's nuts. But I would say, maybe consider seeing about him. It's his first book. There's some art in it, and he did all the drawings.
oh cool.
And so, you may want to check it out
Yeah.
and see what it's all about.
Yeah, I'll reach out. That would be absolutely. So, and I'll, I'll drop your name. That'll help.
He'll go, who?
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. Okay.
But
well,
I was going to suggest also, Dave Grohl wrote a book of the Foo Fighters,
well, and that's the way that I'll get Weber is I'll say, look, Mr. Weber or Mr. Grohl, I'm willing to have either of you and consider you to be peers.
Well,
and, equals, and he'll be like, I'm in.
Dave had a conflict, so I need to fill this spot.
Yeah.
So, Michael, could you do it?
Yeah. Oh, fine. I'll be. I'll try and get them both. Why not? That'd be great. Maybe they'll do the show together. That would be interesting for everyone concerned.
Okay, wait a second. If you get Dave Grohl, I'm going to be on that.
Yes. Okay. Deal. Have you seen some interviews with him? He is the nicest guy, and he's funny.
Completely
great to get on.
He's a very nice guy. That's why out of all these people, I could see him showing up and doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll reach out to both at the same time on the app formerly known as Twitter and say, okay, you two. I've heard that it would be fun to have you on, and they're like, who's this other person I'm in this tweet with? That's like apparently you're best friends now, and you need to both be on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get to our send-off, I need to thank some folks. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, the song I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. Thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band, you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email that to me. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making the show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. We didn't get into Kurt's beef with Doug. That might have been uncomfortable, and Doug has the power to edit, and so we're keeping everything peaceful. But
there was a deal made between me and him that I would not have to hear him or see him on this podcast.
Yes,
so
honoring that. We'll see what he does with the editing. Watch yourself, Doug. We'll see. Because that's a lot of power the producer has. So we'll see how that plays out.
I know where he lives, though.
Yeah, it's true. I cannot forget to mention Writers Not Writing is a production of Not a Pipe Publishing, so please go to notapipepublishing.com. Check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. Please check out Kurt's SuperGuy duology. Tell a friend about it. So great. And even a very short review, single click on that 5th star makes a huge difference to authors. So if you have 3 minutes, make Kurt's day. I'm too old to tell you smash that like button for this show, but if you gently tap on it an odd number of times, that would be really helpful. This, as we move into this next week, we want to give you 3 pieces of advice. Kurt, what's your advice for everybody for this next week?
Lists are for losers, short lists doubly so.
And I agree and would add a book without spaces would be gibberish, and our lives need spaces too, so don't ignore the spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.
If I take my time